If not, that'll give me a little sense of where people are at activity-wise. Awesome. Cool. So it's time for some people to build. That's great. We're going to do just that. I'm going to pull up the right screens here. I upgraded my office, y'all. So one thing that we want to tell you about, and maybe Maria, you can find the link while I'm talking, is ChipCon is happening, and we want you all there. So ChipCon is our user conference, and it's the place that people can come and learn about AI with other chipsters. So July 21st and 22nd, we'll be hosting ChipCon in Fargo. So this is a live event, and we would love to have you come. So if you have interest, Maria will put the link in the chat, and you can ask questions. But I know almost everybody, we had about 50 people last year, and none of them had been to Fargo before, obviously, and they had a really good time. So please join us. And then we also have our academy, which I'll mention, where we have online events. So if you can't escape the South Coast, that's totally fine. Would love to have you come online. So we're going to talk today about GPT 4.1. Maria can hit the record button if you haven't already. And this is kind of a big update. So I'll go ahead and share my screen and then we'll do a little bit of building, but wanted to make sure you kind of all know what's going on. So let's go ahead and we'll click here. I think I can make this bigger potentially. Does that look all right? Yeah, there we go. Cool. So numbering in AI is horrible. The numbers mean nothing. I actually saw a tweet from Sam Altman that he said, everyone can make fun of how we name things for the next 3 months. We'll fix it this summer. So maybe they'll actually put names that are memorable and actually mean something. What they just announced last week was a new model, ChatGPT 4.1. They actually decided to deprecate 4.5, which, although bigger number, was worse performing. And this 4.1 is an upgrade from 4.0. So if you're not confused yet, I'm not doing my job. But basically, the thing to know is that 4.1 is going to be the best default model for most tasks, and it's only available via the API. So when you think about using a tool like ChatGPT or Anthropic, they are offering two versions of what they have, which is they have their app. So you go to their website and use ChatGPT, and they have an API, which is where developers can get their access to their information and plug it into their own tools. So Chip uses the APIs of all of these tools. And then when you go to ChatGPT, they have their own kind of version. Sometimes they'll release things only on the app side. So for example, for the past 3 weeks or so, you could only use their new image model on ChatGPT. Yesterday, they launched an API for their image model. So next thing we have to do now is integrate that, and you'll be able to do your Studio Ghibli activity on Chip. So we're going to be talking about the API in 4.1. If you don't know me already, I know most of you. I'm Scott, co-founder of Chip. Maria is here. Do you want to say hi? I don't think everyone knows you, Maria. So Maria is helping us with our community and the academy. So you can tell us a little bit about everything.
Yeah, so hey, I'm Maria. I am down in Guadalajara, a bit south from Fargo. And yeah, I'm there to answer all the questions. I try to help out with everything that you might have. And yeah, just if you have anything related to building chips or organizing events in your area or any questions on Discord, just send me a message and I'll be there.
Yeah, so she's in Discord, she's on the Academy, and she hosts if Guadalajara, Mexico's event, if you didn't catch the joke. And so we love for people to host their own events, whether online or in person, and she can help you do that. I'm going to buzz through these because I talk about them a lot, but I think it's good to set context that that little blue dot is how fast people are adopting AI. Basically, 50% of people in the US are using AI every week. But companies are saying that they're not using AI, which is a total lie because 50% of people are using AI every week. So the problem is people aren't telling their boss, basically, or companies aren't figuring out how to do it, or schools aren't talking about it. And so what we want to do at Chip is really make it easy for people to come out of hiding as a robot. Like, we are all robots. It's okay, admit it. And because when you do that, you can actually share best practices and everyone can learn. And that's what we're trying to do with the Academy. And as always, our goal is to have AI do our dishes and laundry, not the art and writing. We want to do the stuff we like, not just the annoying stuff. And so 4.1 will help us because it's going to take a ton of information in that context window. So anything that involves massive amounts of text or data, whether it's huge spreadsheets, huge research papers, is going to be perfect for this model. And you're not going to have to go through it on your own. So our goal is we want to make you centaurs, right? It's going to be human in the head, and then the AI is going to do the implementation and do the hard work. So When we think about AI, I always like to set the stage that there's three types of knowledge. There's world knowledge, and the update with 4.1 actually updated the date. So now ChatGPT knows everything through February, like 2 months ago. So bigger world knowledge, and that's all in the model. So if you ask about trigonometry or theory of relativity or what's fun things to do in Fargo, it'll have answers, right? Because it'll take basically compress all of the internet through February and give you answers from that. But a lot of times we want to combine other information. That could be professional information, like at our company or organization, and it might be personal, like the way I work or the way I like to work, right? So my whole company doesn't want to have lots of bullets and emojis, but that's how I like to write. So I'm going to put that in. And so when you think about these three types of knowledge, sometimes you want answers with a combination, right? So I want all of the information about the world, but I also want to augment it with my HR document and the way I summarize things, right? So I would take my professional information and then take my personal writing style and combine it. So I always tell people Chip is the best thing to use for team AI. So if you're going to combine world knowledge with professional knowledge and maybe personal knowledge, like Chip will allow you to do that. When you use ChatGPT or Copilot or Claude, think about it as general, and you have to type all that stuff in to build that personal or professional knowledge. So we want to make it faster for people to do team AI, basically. This is a new concept. Would love your feedback. I spent 5 years of my life in northern Norway above the Arctic Circle, and I saw a lot of waterfalls. There's a lot of water there. I got to visit Iceland a couple of times and saw some the original geyser. But I like telling businesses about this concept of the AI geyser because what I'm finding, and I wonder if Danelle is seeing the same and other people, is like there's so many ideas at the grassroots level, right? Like all this water on the bottom, this flow of ways to use AI,
Mm.
but it's not getting pushed up to management or to leadership. And I think what we need to try to do is take this grassroots idea, this water on the bottom, push it up to management so they'll say everyone can do this, right? And it'll geyser out to the rest of the org. So again, work in progress. Would love your feedback on this concept, but I think there's something here about bringing ideas up and then making them accessible for everyone. And I hope that 4.1 will help you do that. So when I think about 4.1, we think about there's two versions of AI. There's linear, where it's creating the answer based on the words that come before it. And then there's reasoning, where it takes a bunch of different options, looks at them, and then picks the best one. So GPT 4.1 is a linear model, much like 4.0. That's unlike O3. So if you've seen O3 as kind of an updated model, that's a reasoning model. So reasoning models are a lot slower. They're a lot better for in-depth research because it'll look at a lot of options and ask itself questions. Whereas linear needs the human in the loop. So you're going to say, do this and then do that and then do that. And you're going to look at it and have a conversation. So think about linear as like you're involved. It's a teammate. Reasoning is sort of like a research assistant. You give a task to and they go do it and come back like hours later, right? So this is a linear model. So the way that you've been doing AI for most of the models will still be relevant for 4.1. It's just a little bit more power. So let's talk about what's new, how to use it, and then when to use it. So as I mentioned, GPT 4.1 is API only, so you can't access it in the app. And it's a linear model, and it has some new features that we're going to take advantage of. So first, it's smarter. So on the initial kind of research and arena tasks, it's about 20% higher performant than 4.0. So that's a pretty big jump in the world of LLMs, where stuff is starting to get a little bit more small steps, I would say. We had these big leaps, and just because of the pace, I feel like improvements are more step by step now. It's a little bit faster. It will not be as fast as your mini models. So on chip, you can choose things like 4.0 mini or Haiku mini, and those will be really fast, but not as smart. So I would use the mini models if you want to have a really quick back and forth with, say, a customer, and it's based on a really specific set of data. It's not hard information. 4.1 will be better when the information is, more difficult to kind of come up with. If you're using chip, this won't affect you, but it is cheaper. So for us, we're going to make 4.1, we already made 4.1 our default model. It's actually about 25% cheaper. So even though it's getting smarter, it's also cheaper in terms of costs. The most important part is this bottom one, which is the amount of information you can give it. So you can give it 1 million tokens versus 4.0 was 128,000 tokens. And tokens is just a fancy word for words. The average word is about a token, but some longer words are more tokens. But think about words as about 75% of the token amount. So that means that you can give ChatGPT 4.1 about 750,000 words in the instructions or the chat, right? So in total between those two. And that would be the equivalent of like 10 novels, right? So the average novel is about 80,000 words or so. So that's a lot, right? You can upload that 100-page research paper and say, find me the paragraph about whatever, right? Or summarize this huge government paper and tell me, here's my huge tax document. What do I need to learn? Here's a lawsuit. Did they mention me? Whatever it might be. You can add a lot of big information. So that unlocks a lot of interesting use cases. And it might change a little bit how we think about knowledge sources versus prompts as well, which we'll talk about. So when we think about how to use it, a reminder that when you talk about a prompt, it's just a fancy word of like a question, right? A prompt is just a question for an AI. And good prompts get good answers. So we want to think about, how do we ask an AI a good question? Now, if you're going to use GPT 4.1 personally for yourself, you don't have to have as big of prompts because you can kind of ask as you go. If you're going to build something on chip for other people, like you're going to build it for a school to use, or you're going to use it for a business to use, or for maybe your clients, you're going to want to have a good prompt so they can get the answers they want as quickly as possible. So let's talk about how we prompt with 4.1. So you've probably heard me talk about the RIPE framework, an easy way to kind of structure prompts. So you want to tell the AI the role it should be, the instructions of what it should do, any parameters like the do's and don'ts, and then some examples. And so, for example, you might say, you're a friendly chef, create a tasty pasta recipe, only use 5 ingredients. Here's an example of a previous recipe. Really simple, 4 sentences. And then you can expand on that, right? That's sort of the backbone, a really fast way to start. Now with 4.1, we can change from ripe to riper. So this really fascinating thing is happening with prompts. If you put in 700,000 words, there's a problem people are finding called lost in the middle, which is like the AI is actually going through things and it forgets what it's doing. So it's really like us, one of us, one of us. It forgets what it's doing when you give it a series of tasks. And so what people are finding is that you should repeat your role and instruction at the end. So you say, you're a legal expert. Your job is to review this document and find any mentions of my client. You put in the entire document into the prompt, and then at the end say, remember, you're supposed to find mentions of my client, and here's why. So that's really fascinating, I think. So you can avoid that by kind of restating the role and instruction. The other interesting thing researchers are finding is most of the issues, and I've seen this with clients, come from competing instructions. So even though you maybe didn't mean to, you're actually giving conflicting information. So avoid using words like always or never, because what happens is that might conflict with other things you're asking it, and then you won't get the answer you want. So sometimes it's better to be slightly vague and let the AI figure it out, or let the user add color. So instead of saying, always respond in exactly 3 sentences, you might say respond in short sentences and ask the user if they want more detail, right? So you kind of let the person modify instead of being specific. The third thing that has been kind of proven out, and I always did this with a hunch, but I never had the data to prove it, is actually using Markdown or XML improves the AI performance. And so what that means is in your prompt, give it essentially headlines. If you're writing a paper, you'd have a headline for the role, a headline for the instruction. And you can do that in 2 ways. You can do it with Markdown, which is a pound sign is like an H. So 1 pound would be an H1, 2 pounds would be an H2. So just do like pound space role, pound space example, pound space context. And that's going to tell the AI what that thing is. You can also, slightly more effective, but a little bit more confusing for people who aren't coders, is XML, where you would use what are called carets, the greater than, less than. And what you do is you have an open caret. So that beginning, you have like headline. And then at the end of the headline, you have slash headline, which tells the AI that it's done, right? So anything between those kind of sections is going to be the headline information or the context or the paper or whatever. So that's slightly more performant because with XML, you have an end, right? With headlines like H1s, you don't say the end of H1, you just have a new H1. So a little bit in the weeds, but if you're trying to really squeeze the best performance, that'll help you out. And as always with prompts, show, don't tell. The best way to get a good answer is actually to show an example rather than try to explain it. The AI will do a really good job at finding the writing level, the style, formatting, if you give it an example. So think about not only pasting in the example, but even telling it like, I want bulleted lists, or I want as matrices, or even context. So, literally saying as context, I'm the founder of an AI startup. We do this, 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 and then it'll just kind of pull more data in without you having to tell it. So again, less explicit, a little bit more contextual. So that's some new stuff that have been kind of proven out. Maybe some of the stuff you've already been doing. The other thing with 4.1 is it's really good at step prompting. So this is where we actually tell it to think step by step. And so one thing you can think about at the end of your prompts is we have the example, like the right framework. You can also add in output, like here's what it should look like. So that's like, give me a report, give me a matrix, give me this. You can add any context. So like, yeah, I'm the founder of a company and it'll like, I want you to know this. You could give it the instruction again, right? Remind it so it doesn't have that lost in the middle problem. And then literally tell it at the end, think step by step. And that'll force it to go through your prompt a little bit more, step by step instead of all at once. And I call this step prompting because it's a great way to break really big tasks into small steps and allow the user or the human to make sure it's on the right path. If you think about that linear prompt, if it starts to get off track, it'll keep going off track. So step prompting allows you to keep it on the path by checking in once in a while. So step prompt is something like first telling it to ask the user what type of content do you want to write. After that, ask, is there a transcript? After that, ask, is there any other examples? And then create the content. So you can think about empowering the user to add little pieces of information along the way. Somewhat similar is what we call a branch prompt, where it's kind of splitting up the prompt based on the user's feedback. So saying, do you want to write a blog post or a LinkedIn post? And then have instructions in the prompt based on each. So you would use that headline or that XML to say blog post instructions, and then you put those. And then underneath that, you'd say LinkedIn post instructions, and you put those. And then you would tell it, ask the user step by step, what type of content do they want to write, a blog post or a LinkedIn post. Based on their answer, it's going to go to the part of the prompt that is relevant. So this is an example. If they need to write a blog post, do this. If they're working on an email, do that, right? So if then statements in your prompt, essentially. And one of the things now that will change with this huge context window is knowing whether you should put something in the instructions or as a knowledge source. So in Chip, you can type it in the instructions to tell it what to do, or you can upload a file. The key thing to know about instructions and knowledge sources is that whenever a question is asked on AI, it always sends the instructions with it. That includes all of your system prompts, the instructions you give it, as well as anything ChatGPT or Anthropic adds. So they have their own system prompt that every time, if you say hi, what the AI sees is hi, and then this huge list of like, remember to do this and include this and make it like this and don't do this and make sure it's not, violent and make sure there's no pornographic requests and like all these requests that it's telling the AI all goes with that message. So your instructions go every time the user asks a question, which means it's always considered. So the most important information should be in the instructions. The most important examples should be in the instructions. And then use the knowledge source for things that might be needed. So, here's all the web pages of our company that might be called upon if they ask questions about our company. Or here's like 10 research papers that are potentially useful that could be called upon. But if you put all of those in the instructions, you might be forcing it to get lost in the middle, right? You're giving it almost too many examples. So think about having the prime example in the instructions and additional examples in the knowledge sources. So when you think about when to use 4.1, I would make it your default option. We're doing that on Chip. So if you just create an app and you don't do anything, it will be 4.1. And that's because it's best for most tasks. If you need a large context window, that'll, 4.1 will be really good. Gemini does have a slightly, it's twice as large. So if you want more than 10 novels, you want 20 novels, you can choose Gemini. It'll allow you to do that. And this is a trend that I'm really fascinated by, is like, as these context windows get bigger and bigger and bigger, is there a point where it's big enough that you don't even need files, right? Like just, you're always stuffing everything in the instructions. It's going to be interesting to watch. Right now, I would put the best stuff in the instructions. 4.1 is going to be really good at coding, at research, at content. I find the vibe is a little bit more friendly than 4.0. I still like Claude 3.5 just as like a general writing, But I think it's like like my child, like I've been writing with it so long. So this stuff becomes a little fuzzy. Like there's no quantitative measurement of vibes, right? So try it out and see how you like it. But they have made it a little bit more cheeky, I would say. And just remember, 4.1 is not a reasoning model. So it's not going to do like asking itself questions. It's going to need that step by step. So still think about O3 or O3 mini if you're like, I want to learn about energy production in the United States and I don't even know what to ask. That's going to be better with a reasoning model. Linear is going to be good when you know the subject. So we're going to add, this webinar as well as a lot of other content is already in our academy, including how to prompt, how to use AI, how to use chip. So really love, you guys signed up for this event in the academy, so you're probably already there, but you can join and we'll update you on future events. And I would love to just show a little bit how this looks. I'll take a moment here to look at questions. Was there anything that came through, Maria, that I should jump in on?
I think Catherine's asking if you need to upgrade to Pro to use this.
No, this will be the default model for everybody. So you'll be able to use 4.1 all the time when you get started. So, and I have to make sure that's coded correctly. So that's a good for me too. Good for me to make sure, but that's the idea. Cool. Other questions that I missed or should hit? Yeah, you got the link in there. Perfect. So I'll just very briefly show you where this is on chip and then let you guys go build. So, here's our application window, right, where we can build our apps. You can always get there by clicking apps up here. And I'll go ahead and click a new chip chat and it'll spin up our builder. And you can see here now the model is 4.1. So you'll see that right there. You can always switch here. And we added something yesterday to actually show how many tokens you can put in. This is actually incorrect. It's 2 million. So we're updating that today. But you'll see that, Gemini will have 2, GPT-4.1 is 1, but you can see the other models are much smaller, right? So this is really like 5 to 10 times bigger than every other model. When you click it, it'll also share kind of what it's good at, and you can click use this model. If you have an existing app, it will not change unless you tell it to. So it'll stay on 4.0 if you are already using 4.0. Once you change, you can't go back. So 4.0 is gone. We're not allowing people to use it moving forward because this is better version. So if you like how things work and you don't want to change it, that's fine. But I would duplicate it and then change the duplication if you want to test it. I would keep one as 4.0. But in terms of our prompt, then we can go grab like a massive file. So let's see, what did I pull up? Oh yeah, here's a PDF, but we can grab something really big. So here's like let's see if I can get this. Here's a big list of chemicals that you can't use in California. Let's see this. I have no idea if this will work. And I'm going to go ahead and paste this in. So here's 23 pages. If I can get it to paste. Oh, let's see, in the prompt. Okay, here we go. List of chemicals I can't use in California. There we go. So this is a massive list here of 23 pages of chemicals. And then I'm going to put this in. And we'll see how it does. So yeah, this is in the prompt. That's good to know. So yeah, this is good. So now it's pulling this list from, a massive 23-page document, and it's filtering it for what crayon producers might use. I have no idea if that's correct or not, but super fast, easy to use. So that's kind of 4.1 in action, just to kind of give you a sense of like, what we can add in here. And really excited to see, how you might use that yourselves. So I'll pause there because I have to jump to another webinar in about 3 minutes. But what questions do you have, and what are you going to build with it? Exactly, Kevin. I actually told Maria right before, I was like, what's something really big that I have on my file? And I worked with a company that, yeah, is a chemical producer, and they have this issue where they have to sell to California, and only California has this rule of like, here's all these things that you can't sell to California. And so they have to go through this list, and they do it manually right now. They scroll through 23 pages and compare anything that they might have. So this is like super simple, fast way to find information for them. So Great. Any questions, Kelly? Great to have you. Armina, thanks for coming. Great to see you. Awesome.
I'll
Well, I
just
know this
plus
is
what
heavy on content, but yeah, go ahead, Maria. Yeah.
I'll just plus one on the hashtag thing. Like, please try to use it if you have knowledge. Just use the hashtags to like separate the headlines because that makes an insane, it makes a massive difference. Yesterday, that solely fixed something that we've been trying to fix for weeks now. So
Wow, that's
it
cool.
sounds really small, but it's really, really massive, especially when you start adding like way more knowledge into
Yeah.
the tools.
And the other thing is it makes it easier for you to edit. That's kind of why I started doing it. It's like, oh, I need to add a new example. And then it's like, okay, where in this prompt is the example? Now I can just like visually like find it. Um, yeah, learn Markdown. Honestly, just the pound signs is really all you need. The other one is probably like the stars, double star, double asterisk on both sides of the word is bold. Those are the two that I use the most. So, bold will give a little emphasis for the AI within the text, so that helps a little bit. I use it in the prompt. Yeah. In the instructions, I don't usually have as big of a question, so it doesn't make as much sense there. And I kind of put an example. The funny thing is if you do pound space word, like in Zoom or in Google Docs, it actually formats it. So I can't even put it in the chat here because if I do pound space context, it actually gives you a markdown. So that's kind of a quite universal thing that a lot of software takes advantage of. Um, that would be good. We should just have in the Academy, Maria, you should just find a markdown cheat code and an XML like swipe file. That'd be really easy to create. So I'll just say we're gonna do it. And when I say that, that means Maria's gonna do it. I do too, Kelly. It's great to have you. Danella, thank you. We'll be back. What's next, Maria, for content? We got how to sell WhatsApp in 2 weeks, I believe.
I hope so. Yes, the WhatsApp is coming.
Yeah, it's the
And
white
we have a
whale.
few, yeah, we have a few new models coming next week on the
Yeah.
Academy. So
Yeah.
it'll be really cool.
Oh, the last thing to tell people is our new feature request page. So we are now opening up our roadmap to you. I'm going to put the link in the chat and then I'll show it to you as well. So updates.chip.ai is where you tell us what to build and we do it. So when we go here, here's our feedback section. You can vote for existing ideas and, organize it, if you want to go top or trending. And then what we can do is we actually pull that into our roadmap, which you can also see. So you can see here the ideas and what we're working on. What's nice about this is if you vote or add an idea, you'll actually get an update when it's built or when we're working on it. So you kind of know the status of everything. And then we're starting a change log as well. So if you have a hard time keeping up with what's changing at Chip, I do. This was like whenever we have a release, we'll put everything in here. So here you can see the 4.1. We updated how you can export CSVs for your users. We added some internationalization stuff, model selection, deprecated 4.0. So that's just a good place if you're like, what's the latest? We'll have everything there. You can scroll through it. So that's open to anybody. I think you create an account to keep updated if you want. So I would love to have you join us there and give us ideas. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone. Hey, Sarah, thanks to have you. See you on the next one. Thanks, Gus. Have a great day. Bye-bye, y'all.
See you soon. Bye.